Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Uncanny Treks. We are covering the fourth trade of Grant Morrison's New X-Men. That is New X-Men Volume 4, Riot at Xaviers. It encompasses issues number 134 through 138. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. Matt, how you doing this evening?
Doing well, Bob. It's quite a riot at Xaviers. When I read the title of this, there were so many different things that came to mind. What that looked like? Because we see the mansion get invaded all the time. There's always crazy stuff going on, but a riot. What does that
Yeah, now that you
encompass?
say that, it's interesting because if you say riot at Xaviers, your first thought might be anti-mutant bigots on the outside rioting, not the students rioting. So it's an
Correct.
interesting shift from what your expectations might be.
And Bob, we do open up this volume with the death of a mutant too.
This is issue number 134, Kid Omega, which is Quentin Quire, sometimes codename. We meet Quentin Quire this issue. The art's by Kieran Grant. Like Matt said, we open with a loss, Matt. Who's our loss?
Jumbo Carnation, Bob. You're introduced to this guy, then he immediately dies. And I'm okay with that, but when I first read this a few years back, I thought maybe this was an established character that I was supposed to know more about going in.
It's interesting that they do treat him as an established character. Granted, it seems like only a couple of the Xavier School students actually know who Jumbo is. It seems Charisma and Quentin Quire know, and the rest are maybe acting like they know in order to impress Quentin
Intentionally
Quire.
written that way on
Yeah,
purpose. Even Quentin, when he discovers that Jumbo Carnation died, the star doesn't seem to care that much.
he slowly decides it can be a pretext for what he wants to do, right? So it
Right.
goes with Jumbo's death. But yeah, it is interesting. It's also interesting because, like a lot of characters from this run who get killed off, Jumbo Carnation will get resurrected in the Krakoa era and gets used, not a whole lot, but gets used more than he ever did in the original. So you might also be vaguely remembering Carnation being back around in the Krakoa era.
Bob, what makes Carnation so special is that he is the fashionista of mutants, big fashion icon. And part of his fashion is that he wears a wrestling belt that looks a lot like the Intercontinental Championship from the early 90s that Shawn Michaels used to wear because it's white.
I'm not sure if it actually is a wrestling belt, but it certainly looks like one.
It's got that look to it. He also has platform shoes, a fur coat, and leather gloves. So you get an idea of what this man looks like.
Matt, do you remember the Hellfire Gala? I don't know if crossovers is the right word because they weren't really crossovers, but the Hellfire Gala event they were doing every couple of years in the Krakoa era.
Oh yeah, the Hellfire Gala is a huge event.
Most of those outfits for the Hellfire Gala were designed by Jumbo in the Krakoa era.
Oh, Jumbo Carnation. He's the one who came up with those beautiful designs.
Indeed.
They
Indeed.
they were thinking this through even way back in 2002.
Speaking of characters who are only slowly coming to realizations, I really do that Glob Herman does not realize there are 5 Stepford cuckoos. He's confused about the number. That's fun.
There's just three in current day, right? Because I know Esme
Krakoa.
Krakoa.
A little bit of spoilers, listeners, but after this arc, yeah, basically there are just 3 until Krakoa normalizes mutant resurrection and they bring back the full 5 in 1. At least as far as I can remember. Maybe I'm being stupid and forgetting something, but as far as I can remember, yeah. After this arc, and then
We're stuck with three for a pretty long span of time. That's what I'm
yeah.
aware.
Although we'll see one cuckoo leave at the end of our second episode today, and she's going to be back before the end of the run, but not back with the other 3.
Bob, like you said at the start of the show, we are introduced to Quentin Quire. And he comes out with several different names here. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I prefer Double Q. You see him called, I think, QQ more often in this issue. Wrestling style, I like to call him Double Q, but I get the sense, Matt, you're not such a fan of Double
Yeah,
Q.
I'm the exact opposite because of the wrestling thing. I don't like the double J you're trying to make a reference to. So QQ, I like just the two Qs together. I don't know.
Oh, to me, it's more of an Arn Anderson and a Claudio Castagnoli reference. Then
Oh,
I knew Jarrett was doing it long before Castagnoli, but Anderson was doing it long before Jarrett, and I assume somebody was doing it long before Arn.
honest to God, once he starts taking the name, I prefer the name Kid Omega. It's a good name for this particular character. It fits the ironic styling of the character.
I do like how it sounds like an evil Legion of Superheroes name.
Yes. Kid Omega. Or some rip-off Nintendo character.
Yeah,
They could get the licensing for Mega Man, so they had to go with Kid Omega.
that's good.
So,
Right.
Bob, on page 10, Quentin Quire has this newspaper from the day he was born. And he's a teenager. I'm say 16, I'm guessing.
He might even be 15.
Somewhere around 15, 16 years ago, that is when the Submariner attacked New York.
By a Submariner attack New York, you mean the Golden Age Submariner fighting the
I think that's what it's
George?
referencing here because it
I
says the dude
I
with the whips like Satan or Prince Namor, and it shows an image of someone from Atlantis with a whip trying to attack people.
I assume that this has to be from the early Fantastic Four.
You think so? Okay.
I didn't go back and check, but I assume that initial Namor floods New York and fights the Human Torch. That's always pretty squarely in 1940.
So this article is making reference to the Fantastic Four against the Submariner when he
Yeah,
returned. Okay.
actually, I'm embarrassed. I can't remember what specific issue of the Kirby Fantastic Four it would be referencing,
But we've
but I
probably covered
assume
it at some point.
we did cover it in the Epic.
That makes a lot more sense because I know that Grand Design is not canon, but I like to think that's how the mutant thing started with the mutant hatred started with Submariner's attack of New York. In my mind, in my head canon. So it was cool to see some reference to Submariner here. But now that does make sense though that we're saying, okay, this is when he returned with the Fantastic Four and they're making this other references that he's still out there.
Yeah, it would pretty much have to be. Maybe you're right and Morrison is confused, or maybe there's a more complicated history of when you date that initial Namor Human Torch New York attack that I'm aware of. But no, my assumption would be, yeah, it's an early Fantastic Four adventure that the Daily Bugle's referencing.
But that does put the X-Men being around for about 15 years then.
Which is interesting because I think at this point, the tendency was more to treat it at about 10 years, but it seems pretty reasonable, right?
That's acceptable.
Nice. So I think you did like a lot of the homicide investigation angle of this issue, right?
It is interesting too, because you see one of my favorite panels in this particular issue, Jimbo Carnation's chalk outline, and you see all four arms have been outlined. That was my favorite scene in this particular issue. And you have the human detective, Beast, and Cyclops all looking over it, going, "How can we solve this?" It's quirky.
One of these angles that the Morrison run really brings up, but only explores a little, of having M-Town as being a neighborhood in New York and trying to signal this subculture of mutant fashion, mutant celebrities, mutant murder cases, things like that, right?
It's trying to give culture to the mutants that I feel was talked about previous X-Men stuff we've read. But mutant culture here, they're trying to overtake pop culture, day-to-day stuff, even looking at crime scenes. You got
And it's a
mutants
shame
involved.
because some other titles take this stuff up, but pretty quickly you have House of M and Scarlet Witch's No More Mutants. So you go from thousands or millions of mutants down to 198. So this whole thing of a mutant subculture is lost, honestly, until the Krakoa era.
And the Krakoa era brings it back, but it's its own separate, almost exaggerated to a point.
Yeah, that is a separate culture on Krakoa rather than a subculture in New York and the broader world.
I do like how they do give Cyclops crap though, and he does point out the fact that he hates to have his picture taken because he comes out looking stiff and inhuman. And I didn't know if the inhuman line was meant to be a jab.
I think it's too early for Marvel to be promoting the Inhumans.
You think so, Bob? You think so?
The Inhumans are around, right? I think the Paul Jenkins, Jay Lee Inhumans miniseries is
Yeah.
happening right around this time. But it is funny to see both the human homicide detective and the Cuckoos, and as you point out, Matt, Cyclops himself give Cyclops crap. That's always
Yeah,
fun.
you found this fascinating. On the next page, we have this back and forth conversation between Beast and Cyclops where we talk about Beast claiming he's gay.
In a prior trade, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about how this was approached. When this dropped in 2003, I could see them thinking they were pushing boundaries with this. But looking
I
back
think
now, kind of
it's-
cringe.
I think what happened is Morrison is having Beast voice a little bit more of an academic understanding. Usually you see attached to the word queer.
Yeah, he's not gonna use that in this,
And
no.
Beast is using the term gay here, right? Is not just signifying male homosexuality or broader homosexuality, but signifying transgressive or non-normative sex in general. So Beast is expressing this more broader sense of the term gay or the term queer that Cyclops much more has your man on the street, layman, popular understanding of the term that it just means two people of the same gender getting together, right? That seems to be how Morrison is playing it. I don't know if they were inspired to do this by backlash from the readers or the fans or the editorial from the earlier remark that Beast made. I don't know if Morrison always intended this conversation to happen or if this on-page conversation is Morrison feeling they need to do damage control for the controversy of the prior Beast calling himself gay comment.
In 2003, yeah, this was probably more damage control than anything, unfortunately.
I could see it being either way. I didn't really want to weigh in. I don't know. I can see people having a more condemnatory attitude of this then and now. I'm not saying that's unreasonable, but it seems to me that both Beast and Cyclops are articulating pretty reasonable positions. I'm not inclined to get too upset about it.
It was interesting to read. Then when you pull the date, oh wow, this is 2003. They're talking about this. On a much lighter note, Bob, do you like the X-Men's helicopter?
I would have to say I tend to prefer the Blackbird to the.
Or the mini Blackbirds, the little ones they usually have.
I always forget about that.
Looks neat. I kind of want a toy.
I don't like the mini Blackbirds, Matt. They remind me too much of X-Wings from Star Wars. I'm not a big fan of it.
Bob, if you like X-Wings, don't forget that Morrison refers to the Blackbird as the X-Wing.
Which I don't think that originated with Morrison. I think that happens occasionally in other comics too, although I couldn't give you a specific example.
Maybe it's just the shape and the design of it. They just go for. What do they call them in Babylon 5? Yeah, Star Furies. Okay, it's not X-Wing.
They do look like X-Wings in Babylon 5, though. And depending on the artist, the mini ones look a lot like X-Wings in X-Men comics too. So my favorite panel in this, Matt, was we get this image of Double Q standing over the graffitied outline of Jumbo's corpse. And you've got a dog hiking its leg on some roses that somebody left for poor Jumbo. And you've got Double Q doing some grade A teen angst, I would say. And he's saying, the professor's a fake. Mom and dad are strangers. Everything's a lie. And the drugs can't hurt me. That was a great page. It cracked me up. And it does exhibit, on the one hand, Quentin Quire is a great character. He makes a few valid points.
But he's so flawed, though.
But yeah, it's also clearly Morrison is having a bit of fun at Quentin's expense. And it's a little bit pointing out the self-grandiosity that you often see in teenagers. So I enjoyed that.
Bob, moving on into the next issue.
All right, issue number 135. You could say 134 is a prologue to Riot at Xaviers, then 135 is full-on part one of Riot at Xaviers. The issue's called Teaching Children About Fractals. Frank Quitely is back on the art for this and for the rest of the arc. No disrespect to Kieran Grant, who did some interesting work on the prologue, but it's so nice to have Quitely back. And I'm going to go ahead and start early with my favorite panel, Matt. That's on page 4, where somebody has put a sign on the back of Zorn, who is having his first day as special ed teacher.
There's an interesting conversation to be had here, Bob, about inclusion and what is the least restrictive environment for these particular mutants in a special class. How is one found eligible for this class, Bob? Let's look at these mutants. What is it about these mutants, Bob, that makes them exceptional in this sense?
It seems a combination of, not to be pejorative, but bad attitude or eccentric mutant body types that make dealing with them difficult in a mainstream mutant class. Seems to be the standard.
You think so? So just having one eye.
That's Basilic, right?
Yeah.
I think with Basilic, it's more the attitude than the mutation.
Same with Angel. So this is more of a behavior class.
But I think with Dummy, it's the one that's gas inside.
He could easily be punctured and die. So I understand his
sure.
And you've got Beak, who's got a bad attitude. You've got a brain in a vat. And
the kid who looks aged because of her mutation.
It's meant to be a class of misfits, but they refer to it as special class, which to me seems derogatory when you have all these other mutants. And I don't think I'd want to be in the special class. It's a weird setup.
It's also interesting, I forget the specifics, but Zorn and Xavier are careful about just calling it the special class, but it seems Beak and some of the other characters embrace words with less flattering connotations to describe their class. It's kids stigmatizing themselves, or maybe more accurately, it's increasing stigma that they perceive from the larger public against themselves. It's an interesting dynamic.
Zorn's going to take them off into the woods so they can go on a camping trip.
They're going on a camping trip, Matt. We also have to the larger school. Xavier is giving an anti-drug speech, Matt. He's trying to keep these young mutants off kick. Do you think Xavier does a good job giving an anti-drug speech?
Xavier wants that kick for himself.
Xavier does have the look of a kick fiend about him, doesn't he?
We could use that bottom panel in anti-drug campaigns, the way he's looking at the reader and telling it to make good choices. Arm yourselves with information. Please think before you act.
Matt, I had two guesses at your favorite panel from this issue. One was on page 12, where Double Q is saying that kick is like breathing the electric air of the future. Or the other is on page 17, where he shows up in his Magneto was right shirt.
Oh, definitely where he shows up with the Magneto was right shirt, because the way the art is laid out, it forces my eye to the corner, the whole page, but it's small enough print that I have to focus my eyes on the shirt to see what it reads. So I knew something was coming, but I didn't know what as I was reading the page. That sounds insanely analytical of the page, but it's true. The way the story is told goes from the top of the page all the way down to the bottom in the lower right-hand corner. And the red of that shirt just makes your eye drawn to it in anticipation for what it's going to say. Brilliant.
Nice. Then we have another instance of maybe Xavier being a hypocrite. Matt thinks Xavier is really a kick fiend, and I agree. Then on page 17, we have Xavier being upset at the concept of his students becoming vigilantes, which in the context of the X-Men school is so funny.
He's literally talking to his team of vigilantes as he's saying he doesn't promote vigilantism. Jesus, make up your mind, Xavier.
Then, Matt, I did want to ask, in your professional experience as a teacher, we end this issue with a staff meeting, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a total staff meeting, and they have all these weird equations going around them and drawing.
And
Anyway, they're all talking it through.
They're discussing or debating double Q, right? And I just thought it was funny that we had reflecting the personal dynamics rather than the issue at hand, arguably, which I'm sure never happens in the staff meetings.
Never.
Never. But you have Emma deciding to side with Cyclops and Jean deciding with Wolverine as they debate the double Q question, which was hilarious.
I'm on Wolverine's side here. This kid's just going through something. Probably needs a little bit of time and some containment.
Oh, man. Matt's discovered his Wolverine theory of pedagogy, right?
Yeah,
here.
I'm going to call it Howlett's theory and see if people just look it up and start agreeing with it.
Become the #1 advocate of Howlett's theory.
Yeah.
Moving on, we're into issue number 136, which is part 2 of Riot at Xaviers. The issue title is When X is Not X. Then, Matt, I'm going to jump late to guess what I think your favorite panel might be. So on 17, we have the hike has gone wrong. The U-Men have gone after Zorn and the special class in order to harvest their organs. So Zorn has had to take a stronger hand. He's had to intervene against the U-Men. And he has taken them out, and their van is burning. And you have this great image of Zorn talking to Angel Salvador in front of the burning U-Men van, which I thought might be your favorite panel. Or I thought your other possibility for your favorite panel might be near the end, where the Cuckoos are giving side eye at Emma as she has thought sex with Cyclops. And you also have Beast driving and Xavier prattling on. They're all in a car, which was a funny arrangement of characters in the panels and in the car.
That was totally my favorite panel. This is all building up to a big event in the next issue. So this is more of a transition issue between set pieces in the grand scheme of things. But my favorite is Emma in the car in the back. It's almost like she's fantasizing in her mind, and the Cuckoos know what she's thinking.
I guess the question is, do they know it just because they know her well?
Well, yeah, or do they know the reader because you can look at her and see that she's in a different world.
We have a similar thing the page before where it's Cyclops is doing the same thing besides Wolverine, although a little less obviously.
Right.
That's fun. Should we go ahead to 137, Matt?
Sure, Bob. So in 137, here
This
we're
is
really
Riot at Xaviers, Matt.
we get the real riot going on here. This is the big riot. And they took Xavier out with a baseball bat. That is Quentin Quire and his little group of cronies. And they've put a helmet on him so he can't telepathically reach out, taking Magneto's helmet and putting it on Professor X's head to block out the signal.
Even more importantly, Matt, Tattoo, who's a very frequent presence in this, Double Q has stolen her away from Slick, as it were. But we see Tattoo do arguably the most heroic thing in the whole arc in that she tapes Xavier's mouth shut so he can stop talking, which is quite nice.
Bob, I'm going to tell you something. I have found the worst Wolverine design, and I remember the design from the first time I read it. I remember seeing the design out of context and thinking it was terrible. And I love Quietly's art. Done plenty of Quietly. You know I love it. But his Wolverine sucks in this issue. And it's the facial hair.
The soul patch.
Awful. Yes. When does Wolverine have a soul patch like this? Never. Even in the next issue, it's gone.
So, Matt, I have such sights to show you because after we finish the Morrison new X-Men, I want us to read the Uncanny X-Men that was running at the same time, which is much, much worse.
Oh, God.
There are some soul patches in that, Matt.
It doesn't look like Wolverine. It looks like some dude from the 90s who makes pizza at Domino's. He has this look to him, a weird 90s druggy guy.
There's something beyond the soul patch, too. There's something maybe a little off about Wolverine's face in this issue. On the next page, Matt, we at first have Redneck warning he's one of the Omega Gang, one of Quentin Quire's minions, and We first see him in this issue warning Double Q about Wolverine, about, man, you really don't want to mess with Wolverine like you're doing. But it was a nice irony of the issue that even though Double Q knows to be concerned about Wolverine correctly, he underestimates Cyclops because he charges at Cyclops and immediately gets his nose broken by an optic blast from Cyclops. That was funny plotting on Morrison's behalf. I appreciated it.
Oh yeah, the pages 14 through 17, the whole sequence is great. It's pure Cyclops. You got Beast doing his Beast talking, how he tries to make sense of everything. Then they just turn around, no, we're not going to agree with that. So Cyclops does a damn cartwheel after shooting his optic blast, which is visually represented on the page. After that, you got Tattoo sticking her hand through Cyclops' head.
The climax of that sequence, which was what I thought might be your favorite panel, Matt, was you have Tattoo sticking her head through Cyclops' head, and you have Emma coming up behind Tattoo and putting her head through Tattoo's head. A very neat little chain, right?
Reminiscent of what Cassandra Nova could do.
It does call out all Cassandra Nova's hand and face action in the opening arc and in Imperial, right? I also thought you might dig the next page, which is Glob Herman on fire yelling, "I'm the Inhuman Torch."
Yeah. Yeah.
Another great thing is on page 19. I liked the acknowledgments to Emma Frost's past in these two trades that we're discussing today. And here we have Esme fretting about the Cuckoos not being like the Hellions who get killed towards the start of the 90s. The Cuckoos' anxieties about the fates of Emma's prior students was fun, I thought. Then we also get on page 22, to stop Quentin Quire, the Cuckoos do kick to amplify their telepathic powers. And so when it comes out that Quentin Quire did the whole riot at Xaviers just to impress the Cuckoos, they're high on kick, they're amplified, they say ew, then they split Double Q, and they split him 4 ways. You have his nervous system, you have his bones, you have his muscle, and that was really cool.
He definitely gets knocked out pretty bad. I also love the Cuckoo who ends up dying. Her head is floating with the other Cuckoos with the cerebra on top of it. That's a cool visual.
It was Sophie who dies, right?
Sophie, yes.
Did you want to talk about that final page, which is a fun callback?
The final page is my favorite because what you have here is you've got Sophie brought out by Emma Frost, who's in her diamond form, but you've got Xavier in the corner making this shocked face. This calls back to when Beast brought out Cassandra Nova's body. Xavier's essence was inside her body. It had the same look, but you have Emma in the back doing the face.
Oh, funny.
Awesome. But I just want to highlight that Professor X's face here is really well drawn. That's the quietly art I like. It almost looks like Patrick Stewart over-exaggerating a look of shock.
That's funny, but don't you think it would look better if it had a soul patch?
Oh yeah, add a little soul patch in there.
Oh, you're right. I got the general reference of the callback to Beast bringing out Cassandra Nova's body, but I'd forgotten about Emma being in the background reacting. Having Xavier in Emma's position for this tableau is fun.
It's pretty good. All right, so going on to the last issue, Bob.
So the last issue is The Prime of Miss Emma Frost, number 138. Have you ever heard of a movie called The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, Matt?
I've not, no. Is that what this is a takeoff?
It is originally a novel, then it was made into a really great movie in the late 60s. I watched the movie recently with friends, in no way related to this at all. And it has instituted an inside joke where we constantly say that somebody is in their prime, right? But it actually is about a school teacher in Scotland in the 1930s. She loves Italian culture and is a fascist. So she keeps trying to inspire her female students into fascism and into the love affairs that she thinks they should go into. It winds up with her getting a couple of her kids killed because she sends them to Spain to fight in the Spanish Civil War. The plot of that is a really interesting echo of what keeps happening to poor Emma Frost students in X-Men canon.
Bob, this issue really just focuses on Scott and Emma's affair, and of course, Jean discovering that they have been mentally talking with one another. We're not 100% sure if they've actually had intercourse or if it's just been
Well, Scott's adamant in this issue and the coming issues that no, it's purely telepathic.
Correct. But as a reader, if you were reading this at the time without the knowledge we have now, we probably would have been like, okay, are we missing something here? We never see them doing anything together physically. At the very end, you got Jean walking in on them in the middle of having these thoughts.
Before that, though, one of the things I liked about this issue was we get a lot of insight into Emma's character. And my guess is that your favorite panels were stuff that showed why Emma's doubling down on the telepathic affair with Scott, right? Because we see the 4-in-1, the Cuckoos, leaving Emma because they blame her for Sophie's death, right? And that's a pretty cool scene on page 9. Then on page 17, we see Emma clearly needs her identity as a teacher validated, right? So she
Right.
immediately switches her energy from the Cuckoos to Angel Salvador on page 17, which was also Emma taking Angel shopping. Cute.
Okay.
That all climaxes on Emma also doubling down on this already going on telepathic affair with Cyclops. And yeah, Jean walking in on Emma and Cyclops.
It's a really great scene. The final page is intense. That's my
Yeah.
favorite panel.
And it's a really great cliffhanger to end the trade on and to set up the next arc, right?
There's going to be a whole lot more going into this affair, but also a lot more going into the Phoenix Force, which is ignored at this point, but you still see it visually. That's the best part.
Matt, if you had to rank these trades so far, we've looked at Volume 1 was E is for Extinction, Volume 2 was Imperial, Volume 3 was New Worlds, and Volume 4 was Riot at Xaviers. Last time we said we would rank it E is for Extinction, then New Worlds, then Imperial. Would you be comfortable putting Riot at Xaviers as the new number 1 in our Morrison trade rankings?
I'll be good with that. I think this is a very strong trade. I think the writing is great. The art's pretty good, except for that Wolverine, which was terrible. But overall, the continuing of the arcs and the established character arcs that have gone since the beginning continue on. One thing I do want to point out, Bob, about Morrison's run is it has not been hijacked yet. That really does make things better. When you don't have some random
not been hijacked by crossovers.
Yeah, no crossover, no tie-ins, nothing. You notice that? Nothing stupid has to be shoved in to fit some other initiative. That I appreciate.
It's a lot bad you can say about late 90s and early aughts Marvel, but one good thing, and there's a lot of other good things you can say about them too, but one good thing in particular is that they really kept the crossovers under control in a way that I would say starting with House of M, Civil War, Marvel really gets out of control on the crossovers, and it's always derailing good series. But you have series like Morrison on New X-Men and Bendis and Malieve on Daredevil that are pretty much just allowed to exist, right?
I just can't imagine this issue being interfered by some weird event. Oh no, there's dark patterns coming over the sky. We're going to have our talk about our affair while we fight these aliens that are invading the entire Marvel universe.
It'd be interesting to see what we think about Volume 6 and Volume 7 of Morrison's New X-Men when we get to them in a week, right? In my memory, Volume 6 and Volume 7 are quite a bit weaker. And with this volume and with the next volume that we're about to start covering, we're at the peak of the Grant Morrison run, at least in my memory.
Okay, one other thing I do want to ask you, Bob, before we go out. This particular volume, do you feel like this harkens back to anything in the Claremont run or the earlier runs that Morrison is maybe revisiting? Because I remember how he had revisited the original structure of the X-Men in the first couple of trades. We had the same sort of character setups. We have introduction villains. We had the Sentinels returning. Do you feel that way here? Because in the next volume that we'll be covering, there's a lot that goes back to some of that Silver Age type stuff that I'll be bringing up there. I did feel like the affair here, does it seem as strong as it was in the Claremont run? Or with Psylocke, or any other affair that, even with Madeline Pryor?
Oh, in general, I guess there's some resonance of God Loves, Man Kills throughout the Morrison run, but including this trade. And obviously, Claremont did a lot with the school, with the New Mutants, and Morrison goes more thoroughgoing with it, makes a lot more of the school than I remember Claremont ever doing. And we were talking about this in a prior episode. I don't remember the 90s ever really emphasizing the school angle this much either. So in that way, Morrison has really brought the school more front and center. And even though there's a fair amount of dealing with youth mutants in the Claremont run and in Lobdell's run on Generation X, I don't think either Claremont or Lobdell had ever dealt with the mutant teens in the way that Morrison is dealing with them in this arc, right? It's pretty impressive in that sense, and it's pioneering some new ground for X-Men.
Morrison's take on X-Men is just really fascinating, and you can see some of the same DNA that's in previous X-Men. It is the same thing with Batman, though. It takes Silver Age stuff.
Yeah, more explicitly in Batman than X-Men. Definitely There's
Well, yeah, anything else you want to add to this?
Join us next time, listeners, for New X-Men Volume 5, Assault on Weapon Plus. I believe that's issues 139 to 145. I'm Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.